While Michael flipped through the book and drew himself on vacation, or talked about wanting to exercise more, or wrote about his journey at Circus Babies, Cassidy and Garrett communicated using the book. Due to the events of Fazbear's Fright, Cassidy had access to a lot of Garrett's memories. Cassidy saw that the memories she went through when saving her friends, they were Garrett's. Cassidy was able to see almost everything Garrett had gone through before he was hurt. So maybe she could give him those memories back. Cassidy asked Garrett questions in the logbook. She pointed towards anything that could be relevant to his memories, such as the page with a Fredbear plush, or she would draw his old toys. She tried to remind Garrett of his party. Michael could tell something was happening in the logbook. Michael realized what was going on after reading a bunch of the conversation Cassidy and Garrett were having, and Michael also wanted to help Garrett. So he did some research about memories and he discovered dream theory, the idea that you can't forget things. Everything you see is stored inside of you and you just have to know how to look. That'll do it, Michael thought. Perhaps he could figure out what Garrett was so afraid of. Michael retrieved a bunch of objects that would have meaning to Garrett. Garrett's plushies, an IV, flowers, the first tape Michael listened to working at Freddy's, and any Fredbear related item along with toys Garrett just enjoyed playing with. Thanks to Cassidy's questions and Michael retrieving things, Garrett figured it out pretty quickly. He knew everything that happened. He knew that his brother, Michael hurt him. Garrett alerted Cassidy that Michael is the bad man who hurt him. Cassidy freaked out, afraid of what that man might be capable of. She alerted the other children. They all agreed they would stop this man. They would get revenge for Garrett. That night, Michael took some pills. He played the tape from the old Freddy's, and he paid close attention to the items he brought in his room. He then dozed off. Michael found himself in a room he didn't recognize. He looked down. This isn't his body. This is Garrett's body. Michael is in Garrett's body? Was this Garrett's memory? He wondered. If yes, then that means maybe he can learn what Garrett was so scared of. He recognized the toys in the room. Those were Garrett's toys. Michael saw he had a flashlight. He explored the bedroom. What was outside? Michael walked to a nearby door. He thought it was weird how the bedroom had two doors leading to it. Michael opened the door and he saw it. A terrifying version of Bonnie. This Bonnie looked horrible, nightmarish. Michael got a glimpse as it went away from his flashlight. A voice in his head told him if he heard breathing, shut the door. Michael checked the other door and found Chica, but a very scary version of her. He then turned around to see 3 mini Freddys on the bed. This was absolutely terrifying. What were the rules here? If the animatronics catch him in the dream, will he die in real life? At 6 a.m., Michael was awakened. Phew, that was terrifying. The spirits watched as Michael woke up. He got lucky that night, but they knew they'd catch him eventually. When Michael went to sleep the next night, he was forced to play a game. If he was able to stop Plushtrap on an X, he could skip 2 hours of the next night. Michael succeeded. Then he faced the nightmares again. The kids' spirits were going into Michael's dreams and taking the form of the nightmare animatronics. They were trying to kill him, to get justice for Garrett. They tried harder this time, but Michael woke up again. William's influence was how Michael was dreaming about Plushtrap as well. Michael went 4 nights in a row going through the same routine. On his 5th night, Cassidy took charge. She would be the one to kill Michael, but she still failed. Then the night after that, she tried working with the other kids, but nothing worked. Michael woke up every single time, so Cassidy thought she would ask the yellow rabbit for help. But then someone else came. It was a bear who looked like Freddy. He agreed to help the children kill Michael. For the next 2 nights, Shadow Freddy invaded Michael's dream with the other missing children, but he failed too. Michael eventually stopped taking the pills and using Garrett's toys. He didn't feel like dying. Plus, these nightmares gave Michael the answer to what his brother was afraid of. Garrett was afraid of the torturous experiments that their father put him through. Poor Garrett, having to deal with that for so long. Michael now knew that not everything that happened to Garrett was his fault. It was his father's. Perhaps some things were best left forgotten for now. Michael took all of Garrett's items and he locked them up in a box where no one would find them. The kids may have failed, but they knew one day they would kill this man for Garrett. In a fit of rage, they attacked the nearest person. Henry was taking a walk outside when he suddenly was jumped by an amalgamation of wires with a Funtime Freddy head. Henry survived, barely. No, what was going on? Henry went back to his old pizzeria. This could be bad. Henry looked more closely around the pizzeria. He found newspapers related to the missing children. Newspapers about his daughter's death. Henry looked in the safe room. Spring Bonnie was gone. Henry looked around some more. He found the puppet. It was moving on its own. What? Henry took steps closer to the puppet. The puppet raised her hands and went over to Henry. It was almost like the puppet wanted Henry to comfort her? She leaned into Henry for a hug. Henry could feel it. Charlotte, his daughter, she was in there. He was hugging the cold metal of the puppet, yes, but in reality, he was finally hugging his daughter again. Tears ran down Henry's face. He thought she was gone forever, but she's here. I missed you so much, Charlotte. Henry began sobbing. I love you so much. I had no idea this whole time you were... He didn't know how to describe his daughter's situation. Henry wanted to help his daughter. Then it dawned on him. The animatronics moving around before. The thing that jumped him. The kids. The kids William had killed were in the animatronics. He had to do something. He had to free their souls. Henry made an audio log about his new realizations. Then he got to work. Henry would work hard to heal everything. He stopped telling himself it is what it is, and he started to look at what can be. He opened a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. He built a black animatronic bear named Lefty. Lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract. Lefty's purpose would be to force the puppet to the pizzeria. Henry looked through Afton's old blueprints. He found the scooper. He found that the remnant the scooper used to eject in the amalgamation could be burned in fire. Henry had a plan. He built a labyrinth in the new pizzeria. He didn't want a new building, so he just repurposed Fredbear's Family Diner. He bought out local animatronic restaurants like Chica's Party World, Pizza Playground, and El Chip's Fiesta Buffet. Henry designed his labyrinth in a way no animatronic would want to leave. He could sense that the animatronics had bloodlust. He could feel it, so he designed RASC. Remote, Activated, Simulated. Designed to cause sounds that can lure the animatronics places. They'd think a child for them to kill was somewhere in the labyrinth, and they'd follow the noise. Henry then sent out a call to all remaining animatronics. A supernatural call that would lead them to the new pizzeria. He even made some drawings to decorate the labyrinth. He then hired someone to manage the restaurant. Actually, he had tried that multiple times. Unfortunately, he had to fire them every single time because these idiots always threw animatronics out. It was like they were afraid. Henry wouldn't allow that. He was hoping that someone he hired would actually salvage the animatronics if they showed up. One person let Baby in, but Baby killed him and left. Wait, Baby? Henry could feel it. That was Elizabeth. That's what happened to her all those years ago. That poor girl, Henry thought. He would help free her too. Michael found out they were making a new Freddy's. Why? Just why? He wondered. Freddy's had to go. Michael applied to be the manager there. That way, he'd have more control over what goes on in the pizzeria. He applied under a fake name. He got the job. But Henry recognized him. Henry knew exactly who was just hired. That was interesting, Henry thought. But if Michael could get the job done, then he's allowed to work here. Henry really didn't care who worked here. He just needed the job done. Michael worked his first day. It was pretty simple, really. All he had to do was set up the pizzeria. He was given some money. He'd buy attractions and animatronics for the pizzeria, along with some other things. He would sometimes gain revenue based on what he bought, and then he had to do some daily maintenance at the end. And then, oh great, Michael looked in front of him. It kinda looked like Funtime Freddy. Was it Ennard? It had to be, right? Michael figured. Was his sister in there? Michael tried to reach out to her, but there was no response. Looks like Elizabeth was no longer part of the amalgamation, but then where was she? Michael salvaged the Molten Freddy thing as instructed to do. That thing had been collecting parts for years. Michael brought it into the labyrinth. Michael was told there was a big event Saturday. He wondered if it had to do with remaining animatronics. It must, right? The next day, Michael added more to his pizzeria. Candy Cadet was creepy. It was like some influence infected him, and he knew everyone's secrets. When telling his stories, the one about the boy and the kittens felt too familiar to Michael. Henry had heard the stories before too. He thought the one about the man and the orphans was similar to his situation, while the one about the woman and the keys reminded him of his daughter. That day, after Michael's tasks and surviving against Molten Freddy, there was another animatronic to salvage. It was... who was that? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, hell no. It was his dad. His dad was here. He had taken the Fredbear's version of the Spring Bonnie suit. Michael was hesitant, but he let him in the labyrinth after salvaging him. Michael did some more setup and some daily routines, but while doing those, he had to avoid getting killed by Molten Freddy and Springtrap. Springtrap, meanwhile, was fascinated by what the missing children have become. Molten Freddy was a very, very interesting creation to him. Michael watched as his dad ordered the missing children around, telling them what to do. It was like his dad controls them. That was why the kids hurt and kill people. They're influenced. Michael wondered if he could stop this, if he could make the kids remember what his dad really did to them. Michael went to salvage the next animatronic. It was his sister. It looked like she had taken parts from circus babies. Elizabeth was shocked to see Michael. She wasn't expecting him to be there. Michael salvaged her and let her in eagerly. It would be nice to have someone not try to kill him. Baby was thrown into the labyrinth. She was convinced her father designed this new pizzeria as a gift for her. When she asked her dad about it, he went with it. He told Elizabeth they were trying to kill Michael first. Elizabeth had to think for a moment. She had to kill her own brother? Oh well, it's been too long since she had seen her father, so if that made him happy, she'd do it. Elizabeth had gotten used to murdering children in the past few years anyway. Her dad made robots designed to kill, right? Meaning he loved killing. So if she killed, then he would love her, right? It made sense. Michael bought an arcade machine that day, Fruity Maze. He thought there was something fishy about it, almost as if it had been infected with pain and agony. Fruity Maze showed the story of Susie, a girl who lost her dog and was tricked by Spring Bonnie to follow him to the safe room, where she met her doom. Would this be enough to make the kids remember playing this game? Michael also grabbed his logbook and began to tally up all the nights he ever had to work at a Fazbear location. That day, Michael saw that Molten Freddy acted strange, but he still attacked. So the arcade machines had to have been doing something, right? In the spirit world, Susie was freaking out on the other kids. The rabbit is not their friend. She tried to plead to them. Susie was horrified. As the manager at this pizzeria played the Fruity Maze arcade, Susie was given flashbacks to her own death. She remembered everything. This rabbit they were following, he was their killer the whole time. He's the bad man who hurt them, but none of the other kids would listen to her. They treated Susie like a joke. The kids even got agitated at Susie for trying to speak such nonsense. Michael knew some items were missing. He needed something that could help the rest of the kids. But what? He couldn't think much. Not only did Molten Freddy want to kill him, but so did his dad and his sister. Elizabeth, why? Michael wondered. Was she being influenced too? Or was she just listening to what their father said? After his tasks were done, there was another animatronic to salvage. Lefty? Who was this supposed to be? Michael wondered. He let Lefty in the labyrinth, but strangely, it seemed like Lefty was the only one who had programming in her that allowed her to leave the labyrinth and enter the labyrinth as she pleased. Who was this supposed to be? Michael wondered. He shrugged it off and decided he needed to focus more on making the kids remember. Michael was thinking that day, and he was content on buying another arcade, Midnight Motorists. Midnight Motorists was the story of Andrew, a boy who was lured by Spring Bonnie before he was horribly beaten to death in the woods. Michael, however, did not recognize the boy. Would it even be enough to do anything? Apparently, it was. Molten Freddy, while still attacking Michael, seemed weaker. Springtrap noticed this too as he was getting frustrated. It was like some of the kids were obedient, while others were not. Cassidy was remembering everything too. She also tried to get the kids to stop listening to the Yellow Rabbit. But again, they didn't listen. Gabriel, Jeremy, and Fritz were all influenced too much. Nothing Susie or Cassidy said would convince them. Gabriel even pointed out the drawing of the Yellow Rabbit holding hands with him and the rest of the kids. He insisted this was reality. Michael had frustrations as Springtrap and Elizabeth actively tried to kill him. Lefty was even after him too. Lefty's design is to keep the puppet asleep. Months prior, Lefty had successfully captured the puppet and kept Charlie's soul asleep. Michael was making too much noise, so Lefty had to stop that to not wake up Charlie. After his shift, there was no more animatronics for Michael to salvage. Then, the next day, it was Saturday. Michael needed something to help stop his father. Michael could sense he made some of the kids remember everything, but he needed all of them to remember. Michael looked at the options he had to buy for his pizzeria. One of them caught his eye, the security puppet. Michael could sense it. He could sense that it was the last thing he needed. Michael purchased the security puppet and added it to his pizzeria. He carefully placed it next to Fruity Maze and Midnight Motorists. While doing tasks, Springtrap, Baby, and Lefty attacked him, but Molten Freddy seemed weak. Way too weak. It had to be working. He still attacked, however. The kids were all watching Charlie, Susie, and Andrew's deaths on repeat. Gabriel and Jeremy weren't sure who to trust. The drawing told a different story from what they were seeing. After Michael's shift was done, Molten Freddy had completely turned. All of the kids now remembered everything. They were not a group of friends hanging out at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. They were victims, murdered victims, who for decades have been tricked into following their killer's lead. But not anymore. Now they all knew the truth. The Yellow Rabbit, who they thought was their friend, was their killer. And now he was going to try to hurt someone else. But they would not let that happen. This man would never hurt anyone again. Molten Freddy began to hunt down Springtrap, and they attacked him. Springtrap tried to bully the children into listening to him again, but nothing worked. He was about to die, wasn't he? Meanwhile, Elizabeth saw Michael. She was going in for the kill. She would make her dad proud. She explained all this to Michael, but then connection terminated. Henry had interrupted her. Henry explained his plan to everyone. He explained that this place was going to burn to the ground, and in turn, all of the souls would be set free. He explained to Michael a way out was planned for him, but he feels like that's not what Michael wants. Henry was right, Michael thought. He didn't want out. He wanted to stay. Charlie woke up. She heard her dad's apology. She accepted it, knowing they were all about to be free. The kids threw Springtrap to a wall. They were gonna be free too. They were satisfied when Henry said the darkest pit of hell would swallow William whole. As William heard that, he began to panic. Like, really panic. William remembered where his soul was before he came back to life in Springtrap. It was in hell. He was about to go back to hell. No, 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 no. He had to get out of this somehow. He didn't want to be in hell. He didn't want to go back to that horrible place ever, 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 ever again. The pain there was unimaginable, something no human mind was capable of comprehending. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be there, but there was no escape. For the first time in a long time, William felt powerless and weak. He had never felt like this. Ever since he killed those kids in 1985, he had only felt powerful. Henry had bested him once again.